So we sat down and watched both seasons of The Exorcist, and we're here to tell you about it in case somehow you missed it. A lot of people did. It got canceled because it had literally the lowest ratings.
Which is so crazy.
On network television. The lowest. And they approved a second season after that because of the critical reception and because of the die-hard fan base, however small it was die-hard because the show is really damn good. And so they put a second season out thinking like, well, maybe the diehards will give you the word of mouth. You know, the critics' reception of it. We promote a second season enough with all of that behind us. Maybe we'll get people to get into it because it's a great show. And nope, the ratings dipped even lower and continued to be the lowest watched show on network television.
That's so crazy. Like, I don't even understand how. It is...
Because people hate horror.
But it's like...
It's on network television, and a good majority of people who watch network television are sensitive, older people. Who remember The Exorcist when it came out, and they're like, "Oh hell no!"
Like,
that's the movie. That's the movie that's made me stop watching horror altogether. This is why I hate horror, is because of that movie. And I'm no way I'm going back to it.
It has such a nice, like a high quality, like, you know, production value. It looks great. The effects are great, whether they're practical or CGI.
Yeah.
The acting from everybody in both seasons is wonderful. And the story is really compelling, and it makes sense. And they leave you off on such a cliffhanger in season 2. Like, they totally set up more to come. I mean, they introduced another character in season 2 that I, like, wanted to know so much more about, and backstories of the other characters, and it's just, it's a shame. It's definitely a huge bummer that we're not going to get more of it.
And speaking of the acting, shout out to good friend of the channel, Cyrus Arnold, who plays Truck in season 2 and has graced us with his presence on the channel for like 2 hours during a live stream, and texts me like almost every day to talk horror and wants to come back on. He was supposed to be on a Patreon live stream on Friday, but he's too busy making movies to make it onto the channel. So congrats to him on his new project, and he'll be on soon enough because the dude truly loves horror. And he got to be in The Exorcist season 2, as well as plenty of other things, Mr. Harrigan's Phone and all sorts of horror. Yeah. So let's talk about season 1 really quick. This has... So okay, before we get into that, I should say that we have 2 priests, right? This is what the show's about. Father Tomas and Father Marcus.
Marcus, yeah.
And then so they are exorcists, right? Marcus is an exorcist, and Tomas wants to be an exorcist. And so he brings him on to this case with this woman who has a kid, much like the original Exorcist, and they think that she is possessed. And so they come in to investigate this, and they find out things aren't exactly what they thought, but that doesn't mean it was far off. This season stars Gina Davis, and it also has... What's his name? Freaking Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I just forget his freaking name in real life. As soon as I see it, on the screen, I'm always like, oh, Fry, immediately. But anyways, he plays the father, she plays the mother, and this season is great. Like, both seasons are great. And if I had to pick which one I like better, I like the second season better, I think. I think there's a lot of stakes in that season, but both seasons do a really, really good job of connecting you to the host that is possessed, and also the family who cares about them, and you really feel like anyone could go or anybody could die. And there are some surprises in both seasons, some big shockers that you do not expect at all.
Yes.
Both, I should say, I was going to say like one more than the other, but kind of both. I think the biggest surprise, I don't know, both seasons
they're big.
have one each that I was like, what?
And it
Whoa, that changes everything.
Yeah, it changes the whole story, which is great. Yeah, I really like that the show explores like what the mind or what it's like to be possessed, and in that frame of mind, or in that state rather, because I feel like a lot of exorcism movies or whatever portrayals, like we don't focus too much on like the hosts themselves and what they're going through like inside, and so I really like that both seasons of this explores that. I think they do a really good job at it too.
Yeah, man, it is such a shame it got canceled, because one of the things I don't like about the show, and this is mostly because it doesn't really amount to anything, and I feel like because we're not getting a third season, and we never will, it's been off the air now for 5 years, like a revival at this point, just, the likelihood of it happening is like 0.01%, right? It's like so low. You never know. I mean, some shows get brought back.
The movie's coming out this year, so like maybe people will be like into it again.
No, they're gonna focus all their attention on those movies, right? It's supposed to be a trilogy. There's no. I mean, I'll be fine being proven wrong, but no. They're not gonna resurrect a show that had dead ratings 5 years old. It's just not gonna happen. But getting back to what I was saying, it's like, so what I wasn't all that into is anytime we moved away from the central story, which was Tomas and Marcus and them, trying to help the family with the problem. In the first season, you've got Gina Davis and her husband and her kids. And then the second season, you've got John Cho, who's awesome, and just, he's fucking awesome in everything. And he's awesome in this. He is a foster father whose wife died, and he's trying to take care of these 4 kids, and a 5th kid eventually comes and lives with him under really messed up circumstances, like super evil circumstances. But he's just this great guy. And there is a big twist, and there's also a huge shocker moment in this second season. When I had said the shocker things before, when I was like, each season has one each, I had completely just now remembered that there's a third, which I think you were thinking of what I was talking about, but I'm talking about the very end of season 2, not the middle reveal.
Oh,
which
wow.
I was like,
the middle reveal is the main
that's
thing.
the shocker.
That is
that
so
changes
cool.
everything.
Yes.
So really great stuff. Yeah. The chemistry between the family, everybody. You've got one of the girls is the girl who plays Negasonic Teenage Warhead from Deadpool. She's been in a few things. And as I said, Cyrus plays Truck, and then the other 3 kids I don't recognize. But there's a really, really good chemistry between them, and there's this great family dynamic in both seasons.
Yes.
Where you really feel like they're a family. You really feel like, mom is mom in the first season, dad is dad, and the conflicts that arise, and the surprises that happens, and the risks that are taken, and the storytelling and everything to keep this interesting, because this is a hard thing to keep interesting for 10 episodes each season, which are about an hour long a piece, right? Like the original Exorcist is like 2.5 hours long. To keep that going for 10 hours, right? To make that movie 10 hours long, that's a difficult task. And then to do it again with the sequel, season 2, and to bring on a new family, even though it does have some reoccurring characters, that's a tough task, and they balance it well. But as I had said, there is stuff that's set up that's outside of that. That's like the bigger picture. Right. It's more of like people who are part of like demonic cults, and there's this other couple priests and nuns, I guess, or there's a woman. She's a nun at one point.
Yeah.
Right. But there's people out there that are trying to take on the bigger demonic forces at play.
Right.
And that stuff I honestly could completely do without, because it ultimately doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
Because it's supposed to go somewhere and it never does. And you're just setting up for this bigger and bigger thing. And I know that they're swelling towards that eventually in season 3 or 4 or whatever. But it never goes anywhere, so it's completely pointless. Season 1 with the family, complete and done when it's done. Season 2, the stuff with the family, completely done and done, right? So we get those stories and they're completed. And I feel like if we didn't have the expanded stuff, which would have been cool had the show went on, and expanded upon more and eventually finished, then it would be fine. But because it's here and there is no conclusion to it, and it just leaves off on a cliffhanger, because that's the stuff that leaves off on the cliffhanger, it does make it a bummer. And I feel like the writer should have known, like, we need to wrap this up but leave it open-ended. Right? Leave it to where we can make a third season, but don't set up so much stuff that it's like, if we don't get one, and the likelihood is we're probably not going to get one, we're lucky to be doing a second season. I just feel like it was kind of a little bit irresponsible to set up so much for a third season, but maybe they were trying to egg the studio into like doing it, but they should have known better. That's my only really real complaint. I don't hate any of it.
Yeah,
I just want to see it concluded.
Yeah, I want to see it concluded too. But
write a book.
I definitely
do a book or something.
I definitely don't think that it's pointless though, because I think that like the show is kind of trying to demonstrate that there are larger forces, right? Like it is the battle between good and evil, and I think that does need to be shown on a larger scale, which, you know, it's the church and these cults and whatever, and like the things that are going on with the members of those organizations and how people are being corrupted, and I think that that's important. So I wasn't like, I mean, it is, as you said, like, doesn't go anywhere, and so it is kind of pointless in a sense, but I don't think entirely at all.
There are some like direct homages to The Exorcist and The Exorcist 3, which I was surprised to see, and a very cool homage to The Exorcist 3.
Very
and
tasteful.
Also something we don't get in the movies that's done really, really well here and cool, and this is where we're able to expand time, is we do get a really, really good look, and this is something Kaylee had alluded to but didn't expand upon. We do get a really great look at the inside of the victim's head and what's going on while they're possessed with them, right?
Yeah.
So like when Reagan is possessed by Pazuzu, we are really mostly talking to Pazuzu once she's taken over, and we never see where Reagan is. You know, Pazuzu says something, I'm paraphrasing here, but they're like, where is she? And she's like, she's in the fire or whatever, like she's in hell, right? Essentially is what he said. And we never see that. We never see where Reagan is. We don't have any interaction with Reagan. Once Pazuzu is taken over, you know, once Father Merrick it comes at the end of the movie, that's it. Like, Reagan's gone, and we don't get any more from her until the very end once she's, healed. But in this, that's not the case at all, right? Like, the people who are possessed, we get a glimpse into their possession within their own psyche, with whatever is going on in that, demon world or wherever they're pulled into when they're possessed and something's taken over their body. We get to see where they've been, how they've been dealing with it, what's going on with them. That stuff's great.
In their own personal hell. And that is what you're seeing. And it is really wonderful and very scary too, because it's like, oh my gosh, just of course imagining yourself in that kind of position, like it would just be so difficult to fight back against something that's so evil and so strong. And it really just breaks these characters down to the smallest part of them, so it's good stuff for sure. Yes.
And I will say that it is connected to the Exorcist franchise. That's all I'll say.
Yes.
This isn't a remake. That's
no,
it.
It is connected. That's super cool that it's connected. It's actually really neat. Yeah.
So if you hate The Exorcist 2, The Heretic, like I do, and yes, we do have the proper sequel, right? It's The Exorcist 3. I get that. But if you want another sequel to The Exorcist, which I guess, yeah, because The Exorcist 3 is about Father Karras, and we don't get any real mention of Exorcist 1 outside of Karras, right? Reagan and Chris and everyone is not involved. This doesn't directly contradict anything in 3. So you could watch 1, 3, and this series.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anything in 3 contradicts this. Maybe it does. I'd have to watch them all back to back to see. But this is involved. This is involved in one way or another. So yeah, you can totally throw Exorcist 2 Heretic in the trash. That movie, whoa, what a fucking bizarro movie that is. Some people like it, but very few. It's an interesting film. But yeah, it's a really cool addition to the Exorcist franchise. I love it. I think it's a great show. I think a lot of people dismissed it because that's just it, right? You either had the people who watch network television who are into like procedurals or sitcoms.
Yeah.
And that's the only shit they watch. It's either NCIS or it's like, you know, the nerdy one.
Oh.
What's the geek show?
It's not CSI?
No, the geeky show, the
show?
comedy, the sitcom.
Oh.
The nerds.
Oh,
what the hell is that show called?
Oh, I haven't even thought of this show in so long. I don't know if I'm going to remember the name, but I know what you're talking about. That's so funny.
We'll say
Sheldon or whatever.
Yeah, we'll say.
What is that?
We'll say Friends. How about that?
Friends is
a different. Yeah. That's a sitcom.
Yeah.
Right.
Seinfeld.
There you go.
Seinfeld's great though, actually.
No, I did. This is not knocking any.
No,
of
I know.
shows.
I know. You're just.
I've never.
Shows that
I've never
watching.
seen that show. I'm trying to think of. It's
like,
a super popular show, and I cannot believe I'm blaming on the title
it's like
because I usually know shit even if I don't know shit. Like even if I've never seen it, I've never watched a single second of it, I usually know the titles.
I keep wanting to call it like Big Heads.
Something. Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory.
Thank God you said something with a B. As soon as you said a B, I was like, oh yeah, Big Bang Theory. Big Heads? What is this? The freaking Rocko's Modern Life?
No, it's those big-headed like dog toys, like the pets. You know, from the never mind.
Did you ever watch Rocko's Modern Life?
Yes, I did.
With Ed, a big head next door. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, it's either NCIS, CSI, Law and Order SVU, Big Heads.
Big Heads. Friends.
That's the kinds of shows people watch on network television, and like when it's a Fox show, right? So you have a very specific audience. And unfortunately, a lot of horror fans are like, oh, it's on Fox. It's not going to be any good.
Yeah.
Right? And they don't give it a chance. But the people who did loved it. And you should give it a chance. It's on Hulu.
You should.
If you have Hulu, you can watch the whole damn thing. And it's absolutely worth your time. If you're an Exorcist fan or if you like exorcism stuff, watch the first Exorcist. If you need to brush up on it, and watch this. I'm telling you, it's a great show.
Yeah, it really is. Definitely worth your time.
We only did this review because I want to just shine a spotlight back on this. It's a completely overlooked, great horror show from 5-6 years ago. It ended in 2018. I think it started in 2016. So the show is 7 years old now.
Crazy.
But I watched the first season when it aired, and I really enjoyed it. And it's a shame that no one watched it. It's a damn shame, but it is what it is. It's gone now, but it's because the stories have conclusions. Don't avoid it because you're like, oh, it's left on cliffhangers.
There are
only the big story which is on the outside fringe of the show, right? It's like these other characters really are off doing other things, and they're sporadically given screen time to expand things. But the central narrative of both seasons have conclusions. Yeah. So don't worry about the outside stuff. All the stuff with like the demonic cults and all that stuff. You can watch that stuff and enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it's not going to get resolved. So just focus in on Tomas and Marcus's exorcisms within those two families. Those are completely resolved. So you don't have to worry about like, I don't want to invest myself in a show where there's no conclusion. There is a conclusion to the two stories that matter.
Yes.
So
that's well said.
Yeah. So that's that. Let us know if you watch it. It's on Hulu. Anything more to say?
Nope.
Yeah. Really great stuff, guys. Seriously.
Watch it.
Watch it. All right. Bye.
Bye.